All right, guys, my name is James. Thanks for stopping by. We are going to go over the lowered F450 in just a moment, but I wanted to take a look at the stock truck so we can look at some of the differences. The body looks great. I love the American Force wheels. I did not like how wide the truck is, and it turns out it's quite a bit of work to narrow it. We're going to pop the body off this one and take a look at some of the stock configuration. CEN receiver, a brushed motor, and a four-wheel drive truck. You can move this battery, and you must when lowering it onto this cross member. Good news is it fits perfectly, so you don't have to buy anything or do anything special. Steering servo is here on top of the front axle. It's important to note that this truck has a 3-link with panhard setup front and rear. That's a problem when you lift or lower the truck, and also it has some anti-sway bars. Those are good for bashing and sort of handling, but again, that stuff gets in the way when we're trying to go really high up or really far down. We're going to flip the truck over, take a look at the bottom here. You can see foam bumper, the anti-sway, a couple of drive shafts. So let's put this truck away and get on to the good stuff. Let's take a look at the lowered rig. So here's what I did, and it's a lot. It's taken me about a month of design work and experimentation to get this thing to where I wanted it. You'll notice, obviously, first the bed has been cut away. It's been cut away because both the tires would contact the stock body and the cantilevers and basically the frame come up through where the body used to be. Also, the body mount's gone because it just wouldn't fit. Stock body post up front, well, stock location, all that's been modified. So let's take the body off this. If you are going to buy my lowering kit, you'll be cutting out a majority of the body. You could leave a little bit more than I did, but I like this look. There are some hidden body mounts in the back. I'll show that in just a second. So body comes up, and you can see it looks quite a bit different. Here's the new battery location we just talked about, and we're going to go over the truck front to back and then turn it over and look at the bottom. So first up front, you'll notice there are a couple of servos. These are controlled by the Superscale. This is such a cool unit. The gentleman who makes it has a YouTube channel and an Instagram account at Superscale2020, so I'd invite you to check it out. It's important to know how this works because installing it on the truck means a little bit of wiring and some other things we'll go over in just a moment. Steering servo has been moved to under the front of the chassis, and both front and rear have been converted to 4-link. Now, I know a chassis mounted servo and a 4-link isn't the best setup. There are some compromises when you lower a truck, and that's certainly one of them. I got around with the bump steer a little bit by mixing my lowering channel with my steering channel, and that pretty much neutralized it. So you got a new bracket that holds both the steering servos and both the steering servo and the suspension servos. Those are wired into the Superscale, so you can actually see the shock is connected directly to the servo. So you're going to get this bracket in the kit, you're going to get that, and along with the body mount, lots of other stuff. There's about 50 parts in this lowering kit. Transmission and motor stay in the stock location, but we've moved the ESC and receiver. This EAC does not power the servos. It's important to note that. There's a Castle 10 amp BEC wired directly to the battery, and you need to do that. If you attempt to power 4 extra servos from ESC, you will burn it up. Again, follow Superscale's instructions. That's part of his kit. What I'm offering is basically all the hardware to install servos and his module. Moving towards the back of the truck, you can see these tabs. These actually hold the body in the back, and these support the bed because much of it's been cut away. The kit includes these cantilevers with ball bearings. You're going to be reusing your front and rear shocks along with a lot of the hardware. So you can actually see the original lower links are now your upper rear links. Both axles have axle plates and 4-link adapters on them, and under the right and left side are your servos. So turn the truck on its side and see if you can take a better look at that. So here's the left rear servo. It controls ride height and the dynamic suspension from Superscale. So you can actually see it will move the shock relative to the frame, but also control ride height dynamically. It's really cool. By the way, all these parts are 3D printed in PETG, so they do well under heat, but I wouldn't leave this in your car in Miami, in the summertime. You might melt things. There are lots of parts here. So I'll turn the truck over and take a look at the bottom. So now you get a better look at the steering servo. You're going to get new lower links. These are clearanced in order to bring those axles further up into the chassis. You're going to get front and rear plates for each axle, which allow you to bolt on the 4-link truss, and you can see some custom upper links here. The kit will include some links. I'm still working on that as we speak. You can see the ESC and receiver mounts, and you can see the bottom of the Superscale mount. Moving to the back of the truck, there's a lot of parts back here, but you can see some brackets that clamp the bed supports to the servos. They serve 2 purposes: 1, to support the bed, but 2, to hide the servos. I just don't like the way these look, so they're hidden from the top view. You can also see the rear lower links are now the rear upper links. Again, you have some custom lower links here. You can see how narrow the truck is. This is the sort of maximum width in order to allow the body to fully tuck these wheels. There are some brackets that attach to the stock chassis rails, and there are lots of parts out back that basically replace the rear frame. So there are some 90-degree brackets, and there's this large cross member here, so you can actually see the brackets and the cross member that support the frame, the servos, the cantilevers, etc. So we're going to stop the video here. If you like this, you can find me on Instagram at Crawlersncustoms. Feel free to message me there. There's a link in the bio where I'll have these kits listed soon. Catching up with some pre-orders. There's probably 10 or 20 guys that want this right away, and I'm trying to get those out the door. You can actually hear some of the printers running in the background making these pieces. To give an idea, there are many hours of printing here. These 2 pieces alone, I think, take my printer about 6 or 7 hours to make. So the total kit has many hours of printing into it, and will include a lot of the hardware. Having your own M3 bolt set would be a good idea, along with a drill driver that looks like this, because you're going to be threading in lots of M3 screws into 3D printed parts that are going to sort of self-tap, and having one of these will make your life a lot easier. Again, you're going to need the Superscale2020. That's this piece. You're going to need at least a 3-channel receiver with a programmable transmitter in order to control ride height. So I use one of these cheap eBay Spectrum 3-channel receivers. I also use a DX5 Spectrum transmitter. You're going to need 4 25 to 35 kilogram servos. And lastly, you're going to need that 10 amp BEC. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. Next video, we're going to turn the truck on and take a look at the suspension. Thanks. All right. Welcome to part 2 of Project Pancake, aka the lowered F450. So we've got our battery pack and our transmitter. As always, let's power on the transmitter first. Hopefully it's set up to this rig. Yes, F450. So we're going to plug it in. That means immediately we're going to be sending power through the BEC to the Superscale. Should see it react. There it goes. And we're going to turn on the receiver and ESC. So I've got mine set up on 3rd channel here on my transmitter. We're just going to cycle it through so you can watch it work. You can see the truck lowering. I know from the top it's a little hard to see that action, but that's my only angle, so we're going to have to live with it. In any case, keep an eye on the front servos and the cantilevers. So we're going to go back up. So we're going to go all the way up. That's probably, I don't know, 4 fingers as far as chassis to ground. That gives you plenty of clearance to sort of drive it normally, drive over grass, cracks in the sidewalk, etc. We're going to drop it all the way down. And now we're at about half that height, so maybe 1.5 fingers. Body height is quite a bit lower as well, as you might expect to get the look we're after. You can see some of my photos on Crawlersncustoms on Instagram to see the truck from the side and watch this system in action. We're going to put it at about medium ride height so we can watch the Superscale work. So this is such a cool unit. It's basically sensing bumps, and we can simulate that by pushing on the chassis or lifting a wheel. But if we lift a wheel, you can watch the chassis respond like it has a lot more weight, and that's what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to achieve a more scale look for scale driving. Again, this is not made for bashing or racing, drag racing, jumping. Use your stock truck for that. This is for photos and scale driving, perhaps towing a trailer where you have your other rigs like your comp crawlers or scale crawlers. So I'm going to be quiet for a minute, and we're just going to sort of move the suspension around and watch and listen. So what's really cool about this system, there's lots of adjustability. He offers firmware for both drift cars and for crawlers. This happens to be the default crawler firmware. That's good news. It means there's no servo reversing. The system takes power from the BEC and then controls the front right, front left, right rear, and left rear servos. And the only wire that comes out of it that I'm using is, I think it's pin number 7 from this JST plug that I have wired into my 3rd channel on my receiver. That's what allows my programmable transmitter to control ride height. So I happen to have it programmed to this switch. So if I press, it's moving in 10-step increments. So I can really sort of fine tune how I want the truck to sit, whether I want it fully slammed for photos. By the way, you can't drive it fully slammed, as you might imagine. There's no tire clearance to turn, so you need to come up a little bit in order to allow those tires to clear. Or if you're going to be on, sort of uneven paths or trails, we want to raise it all the way up to allow that suspension to articulate and to give us full steering clearance. What else? This has gotten really popular. I think Scale Builders Guild did a video, and then also you may have seen this truck make the rounds, so I appreciate everybody sharing it. It's been a really fun project. I've built the TRX 8x8, I've built a lowering drift trailer, I'm into jets and planes and boats, but I've dedicated a lot of my time over the last month or so building this lowering kit. Again, you can reach me at Crawlersncustoms on Instagram. There's a link in the bio. Right now, the only thing you'll see on that web store is the motocross rack that I built, but there's a draft for this. I'm just, again, catching up with orders, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out and message me on Instagram. One last thing that I really dig is no matter how you leave the suspension, so let's imagine that we left it all the way up. When you turn off the receiver or when you take away power from the Superscale, I design it so it sits fully bottomed out and it looks great on a shelf. So a lot of the photos you see of this truck are with it fully tucked and slammed, and we get the rims up inside the body. So we're going to hit the power switch here. It's going to remove signal from the receiver to Superscale, and the Superscale will react by dropping the truck all the way down. Now we'll just unplug it. Again, we have turned off the ESC, but we're still sending power from the battery through the BEC to the Superscale. We don't want to leave this plugged in. It will drain your battery over time, and we all know what happens when we over discharge a LiPo battery. Bad things. So we're going to unplug it. All right, that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. Hopefully by the time you see this video, the kits are sort of available for open stock, but again, I'm catching up. A lot of guys want it, and I can only make them so fast. All right, that's it. Thanks, guys.